Hello and welcome to Tea Time. I'm Chethi Narula. This time around joining you from GP Greens at Greater Noida. Rather a very picturesque golf course indeed. On the show today it is the healthcare sector, especially the diagnostic center really that is taking center stage. Now healthcare as a sector is looking a lucrative option for investors globally as India provides a cost and labor arbitrage in this particular space. Discussing the space in much more detail today is the CEO of SRL Diagnostics, Sanjeev Vashishta.
On the show this week, we have Sanjeev Vashishta, CEO, SRL Limited.
If you look at hospitals or diagnostic centers, either for the want of technology or want of manpower, these are virtually lying defunct. If the PPP, under the PPP, if the private players are able to collaborate with the government, I think we can work wonders.
In news, Sang Moon Bay wins PGA season opening, Fries.com Open. And Alexander Levy wins Portugal Masters.
Sanjeev, welcome to Tea Time. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Same here. Thank you so much.
So let's start off with something that's really making a buzz in the market these days about an IPO that SRL is planning to come out. For the longest time I've been hearing this. How true is that statement and when are you all planning to do this?
Well, at some stage we have to come out with the IPO, but
Right.
really it's not really on the anvil in the short term. It might take a year, it might take a year and a half. See, as you are aware that we have got private equity players who have invested in
Right.
the company. We have to give them exit.
So this
But-
is an exit for them more than fundraising for your company.
That's right.
Isn't it?
I think today the balance sheet of the company is pretty strong. The debt
Right.
equity ratio is only about 0.25. So we have got enough of leveraging
Power.
power with us. So not really. I think we're not really looking at coming out with the IPO anytime sooner. Yeah.
All right, look forward to SRL listing soon on the bourses, of course. Now, let's hit the brass tacks with the healthcare and diagnostic space, really. Now, there was a report that had come out from the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, which is the DIPP, that says that between 2000 and 2014, the healthcare and the diagnostic market has been able to raise money to the tune of about 11,000 thereabout crore Indian rupees. Now, what is attracting so much of investment in this space, really?
So, Chethi, if you look at the market, I mean, there's a huge gap in the demand
Right.
and supply of the quality diagnostics products.
Right.
And it's not just about the products, it's also about the services. I'll just start from the demographics. If you look at the demographics in India, I think it's very congenial for the diagnostics business. We have got, income level which is rising.
Right.
As per the PwC study which they conducted some time back, I've been given to understand that by the year 2025, the aged population above 60 years of age would be about 20 crores, 19-20 crores. So I think, and that's when you need the most healthcare and diagnostic services.
Right.
And also I feel that, there's in terms of the spend of the government on the GDP side, as a percentage of GDP is very less.
Right.
Now in India, give or take 4.5% is what of GDP is what is spent on the healthcare side. Now, if you compare this with the US, it's about I think 18-19%.
Right.
In Japan, UK, it's close to about 10%.
Right.
Emerging economies like Brazil, it's 9.3%.
We're still far away from achieving
far away
the-
from achieving
yeah.
that. And the thing is the changing lifestyle of the people.
Yeah.
As I see that people are now getting into the lifestyle diseases.
Right.
Here you need more of screening because people are becoming more and more educated, more and more discerning, and
Right.
they need to regularly check up their health. They have to basically look at diagnostics as a preventive measure than more of a merely a diagnostics tool.
Classic case of prevention is better than cure.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Now, on the policy front, the new government has had an added thrust on healthcare expenditure and the tax benefits that Arun Jaitley recently came up with in the Union Budget 2014 as well. Took the industry a little by surprise on the upside, of course. Let's see what's the roadmap ahead really looking like from your end, really, in this sector with the added policy focus and change in the way the paradigm of healthcare is changing in this country.
Yeah, I think, Chethi, the government has to do a lot, and they are thinking on the right lines, as I see. Clearly, what we see is that government is now committed to doubling the GDP spent on the healthcare. Today, from what we understand is that from present scenario of about 4.5% of the GDP which is spent on the healthcare, the government is thinking of doubling it to 8%.
Right.
Now, which means that the share of the government, which was only about 1.25%, is going to go up to about 2.5% of the GDP. So that's first step which is taken by the government. Second is, I think, if you look at the insurance penetration, if you look at the government insurance through various schemes which are run by various state governments or the central government, including the the private insurance, only about 25% people are insured through the corporates or even the individual, the retail insurance which is taken. Now that's abysmally low as compared to the other countries. What we understand is over the next 10 years' time, this is going to, and so which means that out-of-pocket payers are about 60, 65, 70%, which is again very, very high. So what we are given to understand is that in about 10 years' time from now, the ratio of the people paying for the healthcare out of their own pocket would get reduced to 25%. So that's again is a very, very good thing.
Sanjeev, we really noticed that the share of corporate sector in diagnostic services is remaining weak right now. Do you think the market still remains fragmented, and is the interest bleak? Do you see some sort of a turnaround in that to happen?
Well, the former part of your question is right. Yes, the market is very fragmented. The unorganized sector, the share of the unorganized sector is close to about, say, 85-90%.
So when would we see more corporates getting into
now the things are
diagnostic
changing.
space?
We see things are changing. Now with the national level player, at least 3-4 national level players. Now while SRL is the largest player with a market share of about 40%, we are leading the, we are the flag bearers of the, on the organized side.
And of course you're a subsidiary of Fortis, which is one of the biggest hospital chains in the country.
Yeah, that's true. Right. So I think this is going to change. Change is, albeit it's going to happen slowly. It's not going to be.
But change is inevitable.
It is inevitable for various reasons. Look at the huge gap in the demand and supply, as I was mentioning to you.
Right.
Today, only a fraction of the population is able to get quality healthcare. So the question is whether the standalone labs have the wherewithal to give that kind of quality services which the people are expecting. So that's a big question there. Now, why we are proud as a company is not because we are the largest or we are churning out more and more tests. I think it's also about the reach. It's also about creation of network, and the benefit of network comes in the form of you are able to attract better talent. You're able to attract more pathologists, more radiologists, better technicians, better managers.
Glad you mentioned that, because if you see, India today stands at a cost advantage vis-a-vis the rest of the world, because there's a huge labor arbitrage that we are also capitalizing on in this space because of the virtue of the well-trained medical professionals that we are churning out from our country, isn't it? Apart from that, what else would you say is auguring well for the diagnostic space here?
So as you rightly mentioned, first is the cost arbitrage, which is huge. I think we are churning out tests, giving the same quality, if not better, at fraction of the cost.
Sure.
The talent in India is second to none. The doctors, the technicians, even the manager are well recognized across the globe today. Other than that, I think India can be a very good R&D hub. At SRL, for instance, we lay a lot of emphasis on the R&D. Our R&D in the private sector, in the diagnostic space, we are the first diagnostics company where the lab was recognized by DSIR. I mean, just to tell you what exactly we do on the R&D side is we do three things. One is that to bring down the cost of the product. the tests, which is to make it more and more affordable at the hands of the customers.
Right.
Secondly, we want to bring accuracy through the R&D. So we do a lot of stuff in terms of validation of technology, development of new tests, co-development of new technologies with the help of the vendors and the suppliers of that. And lastly, to improve the turnaround time. And you will see that a test which used to take, and I'm sure you would have observed this, a test sometimes used to take 7-8 days. Now with the newer technologies and the newer kind of tests which are available, we are able to churn out the test in 24 hours time or even before that. Another thing is, I think India can be a good hub for clinical trials.
Right.
So somehow it picked up very nicely until about 3-4 years back, but the business started waning. I think what the kind of signals which we are getting from the government is that this is again going to pick up. So India could be made as a hub of the clinical trials, the business which has now of late been shifting to the Far Eastern countries.
Which means medical tourism also is here to take off, picking a cue from what you just said. The average industry reports, if you see in the healthcare sector, are suggesting that healthcare in India as a sector is growing at a compounded annual growth rate of about 15% thereabouts, and likely to hit about 150 or thereabout $1 billion by 2017. How far is this in line with your estimates at SRL as well? And what would you really attribute such stellar figures to?
So I think this is pretty much in sync with our understanding also,
yeah?
Estimates also, Chaiti. See, as I told you, there's a huge gap between demand and supply. Now, it's also, I'll just give you a couple of statistics, which are around diagnostic space. One is that when you draw a sample, it's known as accession. Accession to test ratio in India is abysmally low. It's about 1.5 to 2 times. This is as opposed to 12 or 13 or even more in the advanced countries. So by mere education, by just educating the people, we should be able to increase this number of tests, which means that the turnover can be taken up by about 5 times or 4 times easily without doing much. Right. Secondly, there's a huge scope in terms of the PPP. And we feel that this is the way forward. There are so many assets in the government which can yield a good business, and if unlocked. Today, if you look at hospitals or diagnostic centers, either for the want of technology or want of manpower, these are virtually lying defunct. If the PPP, under the PPP, if the private players are able to collaborate with the government, I think we can work wonders. In India, the growth rate is going to sustain. If you look at SRL's growth, over the last 4 or 5 years, we have been growing at a rate of about 18 to 20% on the revenue side. And on the EBITDA side, we are growing at about 45-50%. So that's the kind of growth which we have seen in our business. We have created a network which is wonderful. Now is the time to fill the capacities. So business, I don't think there's much of a issue over there. PPP is the way forward, as I see. Reaching out to the masses is the way forward. Doing the right thing is the way forward.
We were just talking about 70% of this country being rural India. Now, obviously, when we say 70% of the country is rural India, we also mean that it is a largely untapped market and a huge source of demand going forward for companies like you as well. How much of that market have you already started capturing at SRL?
Chaiti, look at our network. From the length and breadth, across the length and breadth of the country, we are present in virtually every state. There are about 650 districts in the country. We are present in more than half the districts.
Right.
Places as remote and as far-flung as Dibrugarh, Silchar, Imphal, we've got our labs there. Forget about the collection points. And collection points are virtually in every Tier 3 town, Tier 2 town, and even the certain smaller towns or even the villages. So I think we are spread across the length and breadth of the country.
Across Tier 1 to Tier 3, everything is covered,
we
right?
are there virtually everybody. So our presence is across about 500 odd, cities and towns, and which includes very, very small towns as well.
Well, interesting. On that note, let's take a break right here on Tea Time. On the other side, we stay in conversation with the CEO of SRL Diagnostics and continue our discussion. Take a break. We'll see you on the other side. Wow. Nice.
Good one.
Thank you. Thank you for staying with us on Tea Time and welcome back. We're still stirring up a conversation with the CEO of SRL Diagnostics, Sanjeev Vashishta. Now, in the diagnostic space, we have noticed the buzzword remains genetic study. I mean, I remember Dr. Chaudhary being on my show a long while back and he was talking about genetic testing when it comes to sports as well. Is it true that today you can determine what kind of sports person you can really be just by the virtue of testing your genes?
So Chaiti, before dwelling on that, I'll tell you what exactly genetic testing is all about.
Right.
So we're dealing with the genes here.
Yeah.
And what we call as the medical genetics is essentially the change in the genes that we see, change in the structure of the genes that we see. And why genetic testing? So from the conventional hematology or the biochemistry or the serology testing, we are moving towards what we call as the molecular diagnostics, which is pretty much genetics is all about. Now, yes, you're absolutely right. There's one test which we conduct, which is also loosely known as the sports gene test. There's a gene in everybody known as ACTN3, actin-3 genes. In fact, we are working with various schools where we are reaching out to the students and their parents, telling them the relevance of these genes.
Really?
And they're quite interested actually. The kind of response which we have got from some of the students and their parents is really amazing. They want the kids to be tested on these genes so that they are able to put the children. Imagine if, during our days, this kind of thing was available. I would have been maybe, for all you know, maybe a good marathoner or, which we never able to figure out.
Because your parents would have had it tracked earlier on whether you should be put in this spot or that one, isn't it?
But, genetic is the future. I mean, if genetic testing is the future, because the simple reason that,
Why do you say so?
See, one is that the turnaround time is very fast. Right. As I told you, if you look at the cultures, for instance, cultures take some time, to test. In genetic testing, the turnaround time is very fast. The processing time is very less.
Oh, in terms of the processing time.
Yes,
right.
And also another factor is that it's more accurate, more confirmatory in nature. So you can pinpoint where exactly the problem is. Now, gene test is not the only test, which we the sports gene test is not the only test which you're doing. We are carrying out multiple tests like this. This very interesting test known as BRCA1 and 2, which is basically for the mainly for the ovarian and the breast cancers. Every female has got this gene. Now, BRCA1 and 2 basically do the suppression work of tumors. So if the genes, as we say, is mutated, then the function of suppression doesn't happen.
Right.
As a result of which the person is prone to getting cancers. And if there's some kind of a medical history in terms of the parents having this kind of problem, then most certainly I think you're prone. And you would have heard about this famous case of Angelina Jolie where she went ahead for mastectomy.
Right.
Which is you basically your glandular tissues are removed.
Right.
So it's best as you
How
say.
does it help you?
So see, I think if you are prone to getting cancer, by virtue of the fact that you have already detected yourself through this testing, this BRCA1 and 2.
So every woman should go and get this genetic test done.
Ideally, they should. And more so, if there's something in the family, if your mother has died out of cancer or something, I think this makes more sense.
Right.
And then you're able to take ameliorative step at the right time before it's too late.
Now in Western nations, we have really seen technology upgrades being far more easier than in India. In India, there is a conspicuous lack of upgradation with technology, lack of lab accreditation processes, lack of standardization as well. And in fact, just recently I had Aditya Vij, the CEO of Fortis Healthcare, your holding company, on the show where he was talking about giving standardization of medical practices at affordable price points to the country, which is more so like a McDonaldization of healthcare. How are you likely to achieve such standardization in the diagnostic space, really?
So let me just tell you, Chaiti, I think we are very proud to say that we have the largest number of labs which are accredited. Now in India, out of the 100,000 labs that we have, only about 400 odd are accredited. Now, 10% of this, about 10% of these labs are managed by SRL.
Right.
So, and while 10% are managed, I think about 35, 36 labs are accredited in our case. Yet all the labs, 282 labs, all the labs follow those strict stringent procedures which we have laid down, as per the NABL or what we call as the CAP standards. So I think that shift is happening, albeit gradually. It's not really very fast, but it's happening. On the other side, technology, let me assure you, at least in the corporate sector, or at least in the, the national level companies like SRL, we are quite abreast with the technology. We use the latest technological platforms, whether it is next-gen sequences, whether it is mass spectrometry, LC-MS.
Are you compromising on price points in that process to achieve standardization?
So you can't stay much away from the market realities.
Right.
And our purpose is to do a lot of stuff through the R&D. As I mentioned to you, there are certain tests which used to cost a bomb when they were introduced in India. But through our R&D, through our innovative techniques, we are able to bring down the prices substantially. And don't forget that the kind of bargaining power we have in terms of getting the consumables at a cheaper price, I think it's unmatchable, unbeatable. So we are able to, through good negotiations, we are able to drive down the points of our raw materials, and we are able to pass this on to the customers.
Right.
So yes, we have to compete in the market, but not by cutting corners, by following those standards which we have laid out for ourselves, and give the benefit to the customers.
That's lovely. Let's talk about golf now. You've now taken on to the game for the longest time, I believe now. When is it that we're going to see you back on the green?
Well, unfortunately, I'd love to come here every day because, certainly it has a calming effect, the kind of business we are into.
Your colleague Aditya is a good golfer.
Oh yeah, he is. In fact, he's able to find time, and I'm glad that, he's able to kind of keep pace with his work as well as his passion for golf. Unfortunately, I've been, kind of a little erratic in my coming to the golf course because of the maybe hectic travel schedule. And but certainly, I think it's something to look up to. I'd like to come here more often. It has a calming effect. I mean, the pace at which we work, it's a stress buster for sure. And in the lovely environments, environments like this, with all greenery all around, and especially in the mornings, I think it's very soothing.
Very soothing,
Very
isn't
soothing,
it? Come,
yeah.
let's finish our game on that note.
Yeah.
Come. Well, so one lesson if you had to take away from golf course, what would it be in your boardroom? Because there's a huge synergy between this game and business as well.
Well, there are multiple lessons actually.
Really?
See, one is that you have to plan your game in advance. And
That's true.
Game is
Very
made, and as we
true.
say, game is made in the mind first. So it's quite like, running your business. Then,
And in life.
Oh yes, and then your coordination between your body parts, your eyes, your everything. So it shows you the importance of coordination between the various departments.
Right.
And of course, you have to be very, very focused. The moment you lose the concentration, something awful happens.
Right.
So I think golf as such, you can learn multiple lessons from golf.
A big takeaway, of course, of the game, of course, is the fact that you only compete with yourself as well. How much are you in agreement with competing with yourself rather than others? Or do you choose to defy that?
No, there's no reason for me to defy that. I think it's a very, very valid point which you have made. Yes, every day you are competing with yourself. In fact, you are in conflict with yourself at times that this is right, this is wrong, but ultimately you have to come out with an answer where you are responsible. You are responsible not just your company, you're responsible for your colleagues, you're responsible for your team members. So I think it's very important for you to compete with yourself, excel, and do something better than what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
So every new day has to be better than today.
All right, Sanjeev, it was a pleasure to be on the green here with you today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining
Thank you
me
very
on the
much.
show. Well,
Thanks,
that is a
Shweta.
wrap from me, Chethi Narula, and the CEO of SRL Diagnostics, Sanjeev Vashishta. I'm going to see you next week again. Until then, take care and enjoy the flight of a good drive.